Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name's Joe. In this video, we'll be taking a first look at the brand new DLC. It will be coming out on December 5th for the game Valor Victory. It is the Pacific DLC, so it takes the action that has henceforth been all in Europe and moves it to the Pacific theater of the Second World War. So let's take a look at what we've got in here. So we'll scroll through here. There it is, Pacific, 1942 to 1943. Basically, it's set up for the South Pacific. The area of Guadalcanal, the Solomon Islands, etc. You've got New Guinea and Guadalcanal, as you can see, also mentioned, and it also adds the Chinese and some Burma-based scenarios. So that's kind of interesting. So again, it's 42, 43. Mostly South Pacific, a little bit in China, Burma really. So we click next. And then here you can see the various scenarios you get. You get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 scenarios. And if you're familiar with the game, everything is, the core game obviously is the same. So you do get your scenario details here. Then you'll have your Axis order of battle. You do have the introduction of the Japanese as a faction in the game now. As before, we had pretty much exclusively the Germans for the Axis power, and then for the Allies, you have the Soviets, the British, the Americans, etc. on the European side. In this particular scenario, the 7th Hussars in the jungle is going to be the Japanese and the British. So you have, or maybe this might be Australians actually, now that I think about it. But the cool thing about this scenario that I see is that they have the M3 Honey, which is actually the M3 Stuart. It's an American light tank from the Second World War, if you're not familiar. But the British referred to it as the Honey because of its smooth ride. So just a little interesting historical tidbit there for you. You can see in this particular battle, we've got 3 leaders, we've got 3 sections of infantry, and then 11 full squads. A few different types of machine guns, the Mark I boys plus the Bren. We've got the 2-inch mortar, some grenades, and the aforementioned 6 M3 Honey tanks. On the Axis side, you've got 3 leaders, you've got 13 full squads, 3 sections, 4 Type 96 machine guns, some grenades, the infamous or famous, depending on your point of view, knee mortar, the Type 89 knee mortar, 3 of those, the 3 Type 95 Hago tanks, and 4 anti-tank guns, the 9 Type 94 anti-tank gun, and a couple of snipers as well. And if we go to, let's see, scenario details. Oh, it is British. Okay. Just trying to make sure I wasn't shorting the Aussies, the Commonwealth forces, who did bear a lot of combat in the Pacific theater. And we've got the Kokoda Trail here, which is kind of a famous battle that has been done. I know it's in various tabletop war games. And this game, of course, is based on a tabletop war game. So this one. This is on New Guinea, so Papua New Guinea, August 9th, 42. So this was running pretty much concurrently with the campaign of Guadalcanal. Again, this is Japanese and British. This time the Japanese are the attacker, the British are the defenders in the turn scenario. Japanese slowly advancing on the Kokoda Trail. The Allies' Maroubra force had been forced back to prepared positions at Deniki. So it's going to be an assault. See, they're preparing to assault the Australians' prepared positions near Deniki. Units from the Australian 39th Battalion, supported by elements of the 1st Papuan Infantry Battalion, are dug in wing. So the forces are actually Australian. They're denoted as British. I guess British is just the in-game connotation for Commonwealth forces. Obviously, there may be some British in some of these scenarios, but there's a lot of Australian forces, really. So
So again, Axis order of battle. This one's got a lot of different leaders. We don't have any armor on the Japanese side. On the Allied side, we don't have a lot of armor. If you're familiar with that South Pacific, New Guinea, the terrain in New Guinea was brutal. There really wasn't a way for armor to operate there as much. Even on Guadalcanal, armor's use was fairly limited, and that was true in a lot of places on the Pacific because of the nature of the terrain. South Pacific, a lot of jungle, very, very thick, hard enough for men to move through there, let alone giant armored fighting vehicles. So this is off-board artillery if you're unfamiliar with what this particular counter means. And here again we have the 2-inch mortars, some brand machine guns, and a bunch of different units. The E denotes an elite force. And again we have some Papuan infantry here. And you can see their rating is a little bit below that of the Australians here. War without quarter. So this one is going to be Guadalcanal. So this will be the Americans and the Japanese. And this is fairly, it's the Tenaru River. So it's, this was the night before Colonel Ichiki's men were practically wiped out in wave after wave of banzai attacks across the Tenaru into the well-prepared marine defenses. That was a fairly famous action on Guadalcanal. The Japanese sent basically what I just read, wave after wave of really kind of suicidal banzai attacks across the river into, dug-in marine positions, and they just wiped them out. It was a massacre, really. But the Japanese, had no intention of surrendering, regardless of the hopelessness of the battlefield to the end. Almost 800 Japanese soldiers were killed during the fighting. So here you're going to see a lot. It's going to be a lot of infantry. 4 leaders, 16 squads, 4 sections, some satchel charges, a bunch of machine guns. They do have the Type 92 Heavy. Again, the knee mortars, grenades, some heat, and a couple of snipers on the Allied side. You've got a lot of Marine rifle squads here. We've got 5 leaders. You can see the E here indicating the elite nature of the Marine Corps forces. 24 squads of Marines. They do have a Browning automatic rifle, some grenades, the famous M1919A6 machine gun, some flamethrowers, and they even have a Stuart. And it's identified as a Stuart and not a Honey in this case. And they do have some smoke they can lay down as well. We go back to the Kokoda Trail for our 4th scenario. This is also obviously in Papua New Guinea. Japanese attackers, British defenders, which probably means actually Australians, and that is what it says here. They've been pursuing, the Japanese have been pursuing the Australians along the Kokoda Trail. The Australian 39th Battalion, 30th Brigade, 7th Division have been ordered to block the Japanese from advancing further. Both sides are worn down and weary from the jungle. This was a brutal campaign for both sides. Japanese probably maybe handled it a little bit better, but this was no picnic for either side. The conditions were terrible. And here again, it's basically an infantry fight. It's, down and dirty, machine guns, mortars, snipers, etc. On the Japanese side, on the Allied side, you've got 3 Australian leaders, some native forces, plus the Australians with some Vickers, a couple of Vickers, 4 Brens, some grenades, 3 off-board, larger mortar, and they even have their own sniper. That's the first time we've seen an Allied sniper in this one. Tasamboko, this one's going to be again on Guadalcanal. This was the September of 42 battle when the Japanese landed troops at Taivu Point, which was east of Henderson Field, as you can see here. The Japanese plan was to attack the Marines after having his engineers cut a trail through the dense jungle toward Henderson. Colonel Edson had been dispatched with forces of the 1st Raider Battalion to eliminate this supposedly small enemy force. At mid-morning on the 8th of September, the Raiders made contact with the defenders near Tasamboko. So this one, the attackers are the Americans, the Japanese are on the defense.
that. They have a mounted gun, Type 41 mounted gun. The cool thing to me with this particular expansion is, well, personally, I really enjoy Pacific Theater squad level combat. It was very visceral. The island hopping campaign, which obviously this is not that, but the Japanese, the fanatical nature of their defense is interesting. Obviously, the U.S. Marine Corps did a fantastic job of dealing with the really, really tenacious Japanese defenders as they made their way slowly across the South and then the Central Pacific. But again, couple of leaders here, some rifle squads, some machine guns, the mounted gun, and sniper on the Allied side. You've got 3 leaders. Oh, a puller here. That's cool. Rocky and Smith. 24 squads. They have 7 Brownings with them and 9 grenades. So this again is just it's a straight up infantry fight. Tight quarters in the jungle. I haven't seen the map for this one yet, but the map is probably fairly dense. There's a lot of negative die roll modifiers in these scenarios. I've looked at a couple of them. The terrain is definitely favorable to defenders, and it's a little bit harder to kill, short of coming in and assaulting. So mortar fire is very effective. You get 2-time die roll modifier on damage rolls with the mortars and the bursts in the trees in the jungle. You get all that wood shrapnel from the trees and so on. But it's definitely different than the previous scenarios in Europe for sure. So in this one again, we're on Guadalcanal, Lunga Ridge. A few days later in September, Japanese on the attack, Americans on the defense. So Colonel Kawaguchi pressing hard to take Lunga Ridge. The Marines are making a last stand on this final defensive obstacle between the Japanese and Henderson. They outnumbered. The Marines had but one advantage, artillery, so I'm assuming there will be some off-board artillery for the Americans in this particular scenario. Japanese, after taking a serious pounding from the artillery, launched a night attack, and soon there was fierce hand-to-hand fighting between the opposing forces. So again, here's our Japanese units. They've got some satchel charges. There's 5 machine guns and a bunch of infantry. Allies, they do have some off-board already here. They also have their off-board mortars and some on-board 60mm mortars. 14 full squads Marines, 3 sections, and 4 leaders. These are all the elite forces, as you can see, as well as M1919s. Go to Kokoda Trail, back to the Kokoda Trail, kind of alternating between the fighting on New Guinea and the fighting in Guadalcanal here. This one's Eora Village, Papua New Guinea, 22nd of October, 42. We have British on Commonwealth. It's really the Aussies. Commonwealth attackers, Japanese defenders, 8 turns. The Australian 25th Brigade is on the offensive back along the Kokoda Trail. The Allies believe the Japanese are on the retreat and won't offer much resistance. I guess this was early enough in the war to not have yet realized the Japanese did not ever offer no or light resistance. They were tenacious. However, the Japanese are not on the retreat and have had 2 months to dig in and prepare their positions. Waiting at Eora Village are units from the 144th Battalion. So they have an off-board mortar here. And as usual, they have some snipers and their knee mortars. They've got a heavy machine gun, 8 light ones, and some infantry, whereas the Allies, the number of forces seem to generally favor the Allies in these fights, these scenarios. We do have some elite leaders here for the Australians. They do have 3 mortars and 3 off-board mortars, and they do have 2 smoke rounds they can fire as well. The Sand Spit, we're going back to Guadalcanal. The Mantanacao River mouth, Guadalcanal, October 23rd. So this is General Sumiyoshi preparing to attack across the Mantanacao River, starting with the artillery and mortar fire on the Marines on the east bank and along the coastal route from the Lunga perimeter. Near the end of the evening, the artillery fire ceased and a column of medium tanks churned across the sand spit in an attempt to force a penetration, and assembly areas to the rear infantry troops stood by to assault in the wake of the tanks. So this is also another fairly famous battle for Guadalcanal, where the Japanese threw some armor at the Americans. Obviously, the fighting around Henderson Field was pretty fierce, because that really was the linchpin on which the whole campaign kind of depended, with just the fact that you could have air power there. Obviously, there was a lot of fierce fighting, naval fighting out in the Channel, in Iron Bottom Sound, as it came to be known. But on land, everything was pretty much a desperate fight there from August to October or so to control Henderson Field. So again, here we have some tanks. They've got the Ha-Go and the Chi-Ha. So the Chi-Ha is a slightly larger, heavier tank than the Ha-Go. The Japanese didn't really have a true heavy tank. They were mostly light tanks. And again, the terrain in the Pacific didn't really favor heavy armor anyway. The U.S. did use Shermans, which is a medium tank, and used it with a lot of effectiveness, but that was typically later on and further north than this fighting in the Solomons. We have 3 leaders here. We have some more infantry, satchel charges, some machine guns, some knee mortars, grenades, and the 8 tanks. The Allies have no armor, but they do have this 57 millimeter, 3 of them, 57 millimeter gun, and a 37 millimeter gun as well. Some off-board artillery, off-board mortars. They have 2 60 millimeter mortars. They do have a decent assortment of machine guns here. And again, the leaders with the infantry, that's fairly light. Only 6 squads here, facing off against 18. And armor. This one is going to probably capture just how difficult this battle was for the Americans, but that was the nature of that particular campaign. So now we go back to New Guinea for the Buna Triangle. Following their retreat back down the Kokoda Trail, the Japanese had dug in around Buna on the coast of New Guinea. Elements of the U.S. 32nd Infantry Division prepare to launch a series of attacks against what they believe are demoralized, weakened defenders. They're in for a surprise. That was often the case. Probably the first couple years of the war, the Allies, particularly the Americans, constantly underestimated the Japanese. You only have to look at Tarawa to kind of realize that, and Peleliu and some other places as well. But here on the Axis order of battle, again, a bunch of leaders, a lot of infantry, a lot of machine guns. Yeah, this is going to be a tough nut to crack for the 32nd Infantry. So these are not Marines, these are U.S. Army, so they don't have any elite tags, although this guy here is a pretty good leader, Duncan. They've got 30 rifle squads in 4 sections, so that's a decent amount of force there. 10 Brownings, 4 mortars, some grenades, 4 flamethrowers, and a couple of rounds of off-board mortar support. And we have the ravine, which is also back on Guadalcanal. This is Hill 81. Guadalcanal is in November. The Japanese have fortified their positions in the hills west of the Botanicao using reverse slope positions that cannot be hit by artillery. The Japanese turned the jungle ravine in front of Hills 80 and 81 into a death trap. The U.S. Army's 164th Infantry tried to penetrate the Japanese defenses, only to gain a mere 40 yards. The 182nd Infantry was ordered to assist, but still no progress was made. In light of these failures, the 8th Marines were called to try. So basically, the Army couldn't crack the Japanese defenses. They had to bring in the Marines to finish the job. And again, we've got your assortment of Japanese leaders and infantry with their usual assortment of machine guns, snipers, and knee mortars on the Allied side. We have some Marine infantry here, 24 squads, so a lot of infantry squads here. Some Brownings, grenades, some mortars, leaders. Now we're going to shift over to the Chinese Expeditionary Force here. So we'll head back over here for a second. So this is Toungoo, Burma, 29th of March, 43. The 200th Chinese division is surrounded by the Japanese at Toungoo, maybe? The new Chinese 22nd Division has been ordered to push south along the Mandalay-Rangoon Road to relieve the pressure on Toungoo's defenders and hopefully open a corridor for them to retreat out. This time we have Chinese attackers, Japanese defenders. Our axis order of battle is fairly similar to what we've seen before. Some rifle squads and rifle sections and squads. A bunch of leaders, some varied machine guns, knee mortars, an anti-tank gun, 2 anti-tank guns, and 3 snipers. The Allies have a T-20, wow, 4 T-26 tanks. So that would be Soviet, I guess, which is interesting. Maybe they captured them from the communists. I'm not sure. Or maybe the nationalists bought some armor from the Soviet Union. I don't know. But here we have some Chinese leaders, Chinese sections, some 27 squads. They've got the Brand Mark 1, 4 machine guns, some grenades, a pair of 5-centimeter heavy mortars, 4 satchel charges, and 4 tanks. And then we've got Hold the Line, Perimeter, Henderson Airfield, Guadalcanal, 25th of October 42. So this is kind of the big climax of the Guadalcanal fight for Henderson Field. This is just before dawn. Colonel Masajiro Furumiya, commander of the 29th Infantry, with 2 companies from his 3rd Battalion, plus his headquarters staff, launches an attack on the strung-out 7th Marines, and the Marines hold the line. Historically, yes, they did. But yeah, this was a tough fight. The Japanese just throw a bunch of infantry at the Marines, trying to break through the perimeter and capture Henderson Field. So you do have, your usual assortment here. They've got a bunch of the heavy machine guns, 6 of them. Because firepower would be at a premium here. Again, there's not a lot of bodies. 11 sections and 6 squads of infantry. That's not a ton. Only a couple of leaders. So that these guys here are going to have to. These machine guns and mortars are going to have to be really effective in helping offset the balance of power, balance of forces that really favors the Japanese in this one. So this will be an interesting one to play. And I'm going to do a playthrough of something from this, and it may end up being this one only because Henderson Field, a very famous thing. We'll see. I mean, I like the idea of maybe playing something with the Australians. I feel like the contributions of the Australians, especially in New Guinea, is kind of overlooked in the general scheme of the whole Pacific War. So that one might be a fun one to play as well. Something on the Kokoda Trail or something on Guadalcanal. Maybe both. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, I'm going to save that for another video. I just wanted to kind of go through everything so you could see what's in this new DLC. Again, it comes out Tuesday, December 5th, 2023. You may watch this after it's out, in which case maybe this will still help you look at what's in here. If you've played Valor and Victory before and know what the game's about, then it's really mostly about, is this content something that you want to play? I'm a sucker for the Pacific War, as I said, so I'm thrilled to be able to play this, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And as I said, I want to do a playthrough of something from here, maybe 2 things. We'll see how things go. But for now, that's going to do it. I do appreciate you guys watching, as always. So thank you for that. Please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you have comments, questions, thoughts, etc., want to post them, please feel free. I will do my best to reply. But that will do it for this particular video. As always, I am Joe. This is the Hexed Encounter channel. And until next time, happy gaming.